everyone, I'm Jamie, and thank you for tuning into my podcast. It is week 7, and we're getting to that point in the season where we're starting to see which teams are going to be playoff relevant and whose hopes might be out of sight. So we're going to talk through some of the biggest stories from last week, talk through some pickups if you got injuries or buys coming up, talk through my pick'ems for this upcoming week as well as some DraftKings plays. So let's dive in. Yes, I'm wearing my Julio Jones jersey, and with good reason. The Falcons really need some much needed support this week, especially after a tough loss to the Cardinals, which really should have been a winnable game for them. And with as much firepower as I feel like they have on that team, it's just unfortunate they're not executing. And that's been the story so far this year. So they've got an interesting matchup against the Rams this week. I still stand by the point that I think that the Falcons can be dangerous, and I think they'll be a pest for some teams and could pull some upsets. But as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the way things look, I think that their playoff hopes are not much alive anymore. The Carolina Panthers, I think, can make a really good run for the wild card. And I also think that the Saints, with Teddy Bridgewater keeping the wheels on the bus, have a really great chance at winning that division. So he's been fantastic. And, you have to be happy if you're a Saints fan with how well he's been doing and the way he's been running the offense. But I think that the Falcons are not looking great. They're in last place right now. But another team, I mentioned they play the Rams this week. That's another team that I feel like their playoff hopes are really on the line this week. And they've got to beat the Falcons. If they can't beat the Falcons, I think they're done. They just traded Marcus Peters today, and I think that's an interesting sign. So I think overall that team is inexcusable with how much talent they have to not be rolling over teams. Cooper Kupp has been fantastic, but what I kind of expected with that team is there's just not much to go around. There's only so much, and I don't know that Jared Goff is the best quarterback to run that offense. I don't even look at him as a top 10 quarterback personally, but I could be harsh. I just pulled that number out of my head. But ultimately, I'm not convinced with that team top to bottom, and they've got a lot of really big decisions to make this year, and I thought this was really going to be their last chance to be a playoff and Super Bowl contending team because they've got a lot of big contracts already accounted for. Todd Gurley being out this week didn't help, but he's not been that much of a staple in that offense this whole year so far anyway. So I think the Rams are in really big trouble, and it's make or break this week for them. Another team that is in big trouble is Dallas. So Dallas, they've lost, I think, 3 straight games, and they are tied right now with the Eagles for first place, followed very closely by the Giants and Daniel Jones and company. I had them winning the division for the record, but I just thought Eli Manning would be leading that charge. So really big game for the Cowboys this week against the Eagles, and that's going to be, I think, a pretty good matchup. And we'll see who the better of those teams is at this point in time. Another team that's in trouble is the Chiefs. The Chiefs have dropped 2 back-to-back, and the AFC South has their number, apparently. I think injuries have been a little bit of an inhibitor for the Chiefs. You got Pat Mahomes and Sammy Watkins, too. But Tyreek Hill had a pretty good homecoming week, and I think with him in the offense, I think that's going to shake things up. I don't think all is lost for the Chiefs, but they've got a really big divisional game against the Broncos, who are at home. And the Broncos have been on a 2-game winning streak. Their defense had a good game, and I actually think that they could give the Chiefs a good game. The Chiefs haven't been putting up points like they normally do, so I think that might make things interesting. So we'll get to my pick'ems here in a little bit. Another big story from this past week is the Packers. So we'll shift to the NFC North, and I know that the biggest controversy was that illegal hands to the face penalty, and I'm a big believer that, we really shouldn't let it come down to one player call, but the Packers really stole one. They were fighting from behind that whole game. Obviously, with Davante Adams out, that didn't really put them in a great position to win, but the Lions have been dangerous all year, so I think the Packers stole one, and with that call, it didn't really help. I was getting flashbacks from the Rams-Saints game from last year. Obviously, overall, I think Drew Brees put it well this year in retrospect for the last year, that you can't let it come down to one play, but unfortunately, that didn't really fare well for the Lions. But the Packers stole one. They did not look great to me. I think even still with Devontae Adams out, I mean, they had Aaron Jones, but somebody's got to step up. They got to learn to integrate Jimmy Graham into that offense. He's too big of a target and too great of a talent to be left unused. And I just can't for the life of me understand it with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, why they can't figure that out. But Jimmy Graham has not been the same since he left New Orleans, unfortunately. Another NFC North story is the big win against the Eagles for the Vikings. Stephon Diggs, welcome back to fantasy relevance. I'm sure people that are Stephon Diggs owners are starting to get fed up. So hopefully you didn't bench him this week because he had a stellar game. And that is only in the Vikings' best interest. I really think the Vikings are a top 5 or 6 team in the league. And I think that they can make a charge at winning, or at least going to the Super Bowl this year. So I think it was good that they got him involved because I think that's a really good confidence booster for him. I still think there's enough to go around between he and Adam Thielen, but I think getting him involved will keep him happy enough where at least it'll keep him engaged and maybe keep him around for the rest of the year. But that was good news for fantasy owners for Diggs, so I was happy to see him do well. One other thing I wanted to do this week, I looked through at some interesting rankings in the PPR world about who is ranked the highest, the top 5 performing in each position. Very surprising. So I started a few that I feel like were absolute steals this year that you should feel really good about if you drafted. So QB-wise, Lamar Jackson is number 1. So if you drafted Lamar Jackson based off of where he went, he was a steal. He's number 1 overall in fantasy football scoring, PPR-wise. He gets a lot of receptions, I hear. That's a joke. Number 2, Russell Wilson, and I'm not surprised there, but he was a little bit of a steal this year too, although I didn't start him. And Deshaun Watson, again, I think really all the quarterbacks on this list were good steals except for Pat Mahomes, because Pat Mahomes was one of the few that people paid high for. Number 4 on the list is Matt Ryan. Now he's been playing from being behind quite a bit this week, or this week and every week. And then Pat Mahomes is number 5. So I mean, even still, quarterback position, I mean, they're going to score more than any position anyway, so you still feel good about drafting Pat Mahomes, and he's been a little banged up the past 2 weeks, so I think he'll bounce back and be fantastic. But at the running back position, Christian McCaffrey, and I think he was a top 5 overall, so if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, you feel fantastic right now. He's been really lights out. One that I starred in this list, we already expected Christian McCaffrey. For what you paid, he's producing what I think you should be getting. Dalvin Cook is number 2 overall. He's been consistent. He's been fantastic. What you paid for him, I think you're getting overproduction for. Nick Chubb, I think he's producing right about where you thought he would. So I think you feel good about him. One you feel really good about, I started him, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is overproducing, so if you picked Aaron Jones, congrats. You are a smart person. He's been doing really well. So I think having a full year under his belt this year has been a little bit of a difference maker there. Another one you feel fantastic about, Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, people, I'm a big fan of Mark Ingram. Love the guy. He's number 5 on the list, and for what you paid for him, you feel really great about that pick. Wide receiver-wise, this whole list was interesting to me. So, and I think this list is going to shake up as the year goes on. Number 1 overall is Chris Godwin. He was a steal this year then. Start him. DJ Clark, most people probably didn't draft him, so I did not start him, but he's been an overproducer, so if you picked him up on the waiver wire, well done. Amari Cooper actually is number 3, and that's surprising to me. He's been consistent. I wasn't sure how he would do, but he's been doing well. And number 4, Michael Thomas. We knew he would do well, and I think he would even be doing even better if Drew Brees were playing. Number 5, Cooper Kupp. Start him. You got to feel great about him. He was drafted 3rd out of all Rams wide receivers. So I think for where he went, he is overproducing. I only put one defense on here just because they've been doing so amazingly well and they were they're 8th overall in PPR scoring. They don't get points for receptions, ironically, but in PPR scoring, they are 8th overall right now. And that's the Pats defense. I can't even say it. I'm so excited. The Patriots defense is 8th overall, which is crazy. Insane. So I think when you look at the Patriots, how dominant they've been top to bottom, Tom Brady hasn't really had to do as much because their defense has been so solid. Tight end wise, this is an interesting one for me. And I normally pick my tight end very late anyway, but Austin Hooper's been the number 1 tight end. Again, they've been playing from behind. Mark Andrews, number 2 for the Baltimore Ravens, and he's been fantastic. I've been following him very closely. He's been impressive. Travis Kelce is 3rd. So I think when you think about what you pay for Travis Kelce, I think he's underproducing. But there's still room for upside. As the year goes on, I think he'll do well. Will Dissly is 4th, and I don't know that many people really had him on their radar. Number 5, Evan Ingram. So I think he's pretty consistent with what you paid for him. And then number 6 is Zach Ertz. So I look at that as an underproducer. I only went to 6 because that blew my mind so much. But he's got upside, so don't feel bad about that. It's a long season, and the Eagles, they're gonna have to fight. So I think they'll be playing from behind a little bit this year. We're gonna go into pickups for this week. I don't like that many people, to be honest. So hopefully you've got a solid setup on your team right now, and not many injuries. But if you do have some injuries, I've got quite a few people that I'm eyeing for this week. If Golden Tate is available in your league, he's 61% owned in many leagues, I would pick him up. I like him. Aside from that, some of the, I have some higher tier percentage owned people that I'll highlight. So I got Golden Tate, Mohamed Sanu at 59% owned, and Robbie Anderson. And I actually do like Robbie Anderson because I do like the upside that he brings. He's not somebody I want to start on a weekly basis, nor any of these people for the most part. But I do like the way that Sam Darnold's running the offense. And I think if you have Jamison Crowder and Robbie Anderson, based off of how the next couple weeks look, he's somebody you want to maybe keep on your bench and look to play if you have to. Especially if you got to buy, he could be a good option for a flex play. On the lower end, percentage owned wise, Demaryius Thomas, I mentioned him last week. He had another good week, 4 out of 5 receptions for 62 yards. He's 4% owned. And then Devontae Parker. I just don't like the Miami Dolphins personally. They've got a very weak offense, and there's a lot of QB uncertainty. Fitzpatrick came in. If Fitzpatrick plays, I think I like them more because he'll air it out. But Devontae Parker is 14% owned. Running back wise, I still like Frank Gore. Frank the Tank, he's 57% owned. AP. Now, the Redskins ran the ball a lot. They were in the game this week, but they really do want to get AP involved. He had 23 carries. That's the most carries he's had. And he had 118 yards, 2 out of 2 receptions for 18 yards. So good for AP getting some receptions. It's a good thing. Tight end wise. Okay, so this is one that I really, really love. Chances of him being available, very slim. But if Hunter Henry is available in your league, pick him up like yesterday. He's 64% owned. He's a stud, and he's healthy now. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. If you really need a tight end, I do like Chris Herndon. He's 27% owned. Not sure whether he's going to play this week, but he could very soon. Another one who's touchdown dependent, 5% owned, Darren Fells for the Texans. Another one, I just am not sold on him this year. To the point, Jimmy Graham, he's 72% owned, which I think is high. But he was 2 out of 5 receptions for 17 yards. On a week that Devontae Adams is out, that is not great. Vernon Davis, he's out on concussion this past week, but he's 9% owned. Could play this week, so they're always playing from behind. And, I like Vernon Davis, I think, more than I like Jimmy Graham, but it's a tough one there. QB-wise, I like Jacoby Brissett if he's available, and I like Gardner Minshew. He had an off week this past week, but I think he could bounce back. Kickers, I like Matt Prater, I like Robbie Gould, Nugent. If I really am in a bind and I got to drop somebody, I typically would drop my kicker because they're kind of marginal to me. But those ones I like. I feel like they've been consistent so far this year. Defensively, I like the Buffalo Bills against the Miami Dolphins this week, and then the 49ers against Washington. So there's some decent streaming options for defense if you stream your defenses. Pick'ems wise, I got a few upsets this week. I'm sure you can't wait for those. I got the Broncos winning at home against the Chiefs. I don't know. I've picked the Broncos every week. So, but I've been on a roll the last 2 weeks. I've got the Falcons beating the Rams, and the Falcons are at home. I've got the Bills beating the Dolphins at home. That one you would expect, but the first 2 were upsets. They were not favored to win. I also have the Bengals, who are not favored, beating the Jags at home. Their chances are 19% right now. I've got the Vikings beating the Lions in Detroit, but I think that they're going to win. I also have the Raiders beating the Packers at home. Yeah, that's probably my biggest upset of the week. They have a 7% chance of winning, but I just don't know. I just feel like I haven't liked the way that the Packers have been playing. They did not look great this past week. Devontae Adams will probably be back this week, but I don't know. I like the Raiders this week. I also have the Colts winning at home against the Texans, and they are not favored to win either. They have a 38% chance, so a little bit more of an even matchup there, but I like the Colts. That's partially my bias, I think. I have the Giants beating the Cardinals at home, and I think that they're going to win that game. I also have the Redskins, who have a 6.94% chance beating the 49ers. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but they're at home, and I don't know, if they go with Case Keenum, I just feel like they have some upset potential within them. I don't feel like their record matches their value. I think that they could be dangerous for the 49ers because they really haven't much to lose. I also have the Chargers beating the Titans, who are at home. I have the Seahawks winning at home against the Ravens, and I have the Cowboys winning at home against the Eagles, and then I have the Pats beating the Jets, who are at home. Although things could be interesting with Sammy Darnold. I just don't know. But I mean, I'm not crazy. I'm picking the Pats. DFS-wise, here are my picks for the week. I got Matty Ice / Matty Ryan, 6,300. And you can pair him up with your choice, really. Mohamed Sanu at 4,600, although Calvin Ridley's higher priced than he is, and I just haven't been impressed with him. He's had a good couple of weeks. Mohamed Sanu has been lower tier, so, I mean, he hasn't had weeks where he's gone off. Julio Jones is so expensive, but I actually plan to pair him up with Julio Jones, personally. He's $8,000. I also like the Jacoby Brissett at 5,600 and T.Y. Hilton at 5,900. So that can give you some wiggle room if you want to go higher on some wide receivers or running backs elsewhere. I like Tyrell Williams this week. He's 5,100, and he's playing against the Packers. Now, you know, he is playing away there, so I'm not saying that they're going to run up the score there, but, I mean, gosh, Derek Carr has to throw the ball to somebody. I also do have Josh Jacobs on the running back end, too, so I like to kind of complement my lineups. I do multiple ones. I also like Terry McLaurin. Guy's had 7 targets every single week and a 20-point average in DFS, so he's 6,100 and has silently been a very solid rookie all year long. Running back-wise, I love Leonard Fournette, and he's been a very silently amazing running back. I mean, I didn't get that far down to him, but you have to feel pretty good about the way Leonard Fournette's been playing all around. He's been one of the silent heroes of that offense. He only has 1 touchdown, amazingly, which is kind of crazy. He's 7,000 and he's averaged 19.1 points a game, but he's been getting solid carries, he's been getting solid receptions. I just like Leonard Fournette overall. I think he's a good running back, and I mean, he was a good pick this year, value-wise. Another one, Chris Carson, and I normally don't talk about him because he's kind of quiet. He's 6,500. He's had 20 carries or more the last 3 games, so I like that. And he's been very involved in that offense, getting some good receptions too. And I also like Marlon Mack at 6,000. Also like Devontae Freeman's been on an upward trend. So if you need to shave off a little bit of money, he's had 18 or more points the last 3 games. He's 5,400 and Josh Jacobs is 5,000. Tight end wise, I like Austin Hooper. So you can pair him up with Matty Ice too at 5,300. He's been a beast the past couple weeks. Darren Waller still has 0 touchdowns. So I think he's an interesting play against the Packers. I mean, he's been consistent all around and still doesn't have a touchdown. So anyway, that is my podcast for this week, a little bit longer, but I kind of wanted to run through some of the top 5 people at each position. I think that stuff's interesting, just to kind of see where the value is, but obviously it's a long season and we got a long way to go. Hope your fantasy teams are doing well. Feel free to tweet at me at fantasy_more. Feel free to comment below, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Good luck. Always play at your own risk. I like to think that I'm always going to be right every week, but I tend to, miss on a couple just like we all do. But thanks for tuning in, and good luck in all of your fantasy endeavors this week.